Okay, welcome to the second tutorial, which I've now titled Basic Tricks using Inkscape. This tutorial is going to take you through three parts. First, a little bit more into the clipping tool and what we can get out of it, because we don't just use it to get circles. We can do a little bit more with it. Secondly, how we use the path tool to create slightly more dynamic shapes, which will help you in designing your logo a bit later on, and also how we use that Bezier tool that I mentioned in the first tutorial. Right, I've got three examples here of just how we could go about using the clipping tool. Now, as I said, we've created a circle there down in the bottom right hand corner in the first tutorial, but we don't just stop at circles. We can also use squares and also create patterns with those squares in the grid paper. As you'll notice, the squares that I'm creating are snapping to the grid, which can create obviously some sort of interesting patterns for laying out logos, or obviously design elements for your actual portfolio page. I've created just 1, 2, 3, 4 squares or rectangles and sort of rectangular shapes, and what I'm going to do is hold down my left button and I'm going to select all 4 of them. I can do that by dragging, or as I did in the first tutorial, hold down shift, which can be a little bit easier, and left click on all the shapes that I want to select, so it selects all of them. And that path tool that I mentioned, if you go to path at the top and wait for the dialog box to drop, and I'm going to go union, and what that does is it notices there it sort of sticks them all together, which is going to be great, because when I then hold shift again and hit the texture, so the texture and the shapes that I've now stuck together are selected, and go to object, clip and set, it now actually creates a perfect replica of the shapes I've just drawn, but using that texture. So that's one way we can use the clips. What we can also use is some of the auto shapes, like creating stars and polygons. So if I click on that icon, at the moment it's selected to the star. I can select how many corners I want, so I'm going to click 5, so I've got this standard star shape. I'm going to click and drag to create my star, go to my select tool so that the shape is selected, hold down my left button so the shape is now definitely locked, and I'm going to pull it down so I can move it about wherever I want it to do. Just in the future you can move things around by doing that. I'm going to hover it over the texture, hold down shift, select the texture as well, so they're both selected, go object, clip and set. I'm now also going to use the polygon tool again, and I'm going to choose the sort of hexagon tool here, select how many sides I want it to have, so I'm going to go to 6, I'm going to click and drag over it, rotate it around so I'm happy with the positioning of it, and like I did before, just move it over the texture, hit select and the texture, so hold down select and hit the texture so they're both selected, and go to object, clip and set. So those are 3 different ways in which you can create slightly more dynamic shapes using the clipping tool. But as you'll get used to some of the other tools on the program, you'll be able to think of ways in which you can create more creative products using the clipping tool. Right, the second thing I'm going to move on to now is how we use the path tool here. We just saw how we can unionize shapes to stick them all together, but using this square, it's a quick little trick that I'd like you to try as well, is how we can use say the same shape or other shapes to create slightly more dynamic graphics. So I'm going to select this square, I'm going to right click and I'm going to duplicate. What that will then do is create a replica square. I'm going to hover it over the second square, or the first square that I created, and let go. Just a little indication what you can do down here, you'll see all the little colour squares here. If you haven't played with them already, you can actually change the colour of your elements by just clicking on these particular colour squares here. There's loads of them, blues, pinks, the lot. Right, now I'm now going to quickly show you the difference tool. So I've selected the top square, I'm now going to select the bottom square as well by holding down shift, and I'm going to path and the one down difference, and what that will then do is cut the top shape, which was the green second layer, from the first square, which was the layer below it. So I've got this kind of U shape. I'm going to click Control Z just to bring it back first, and then I'm going to duplicate it again, and I'm then going to just cut that out once more so you can see what it looks like. So select it, and then I'm going to go to path and difference. Now, just using the same process again, I'm just going to go to right click and duplicate, and this time I'm going to use a different path tool. So I'm just going to make sure that you can differentiate between the two layers. Select, hold down shift, and select both squares, and then I'm going to path, and this time intersection. And what it will leave me with, if I go to Control and Z just to show you, is it will actually leave me with a shape where the two layers are actually intersected, which is this set of 4 squares here. I'm going to go back there, go path, intersection. Now Control Z again just to bring it back. I'm going to duplicate the square, and then very quickly bring that back to the way it was. Now I'm going to show you the exclusion tool. So right click, duplicate. This time I'm just going to hover it up here. And then I'm going to select both squares again, change colour so it can differentiate. Hold down shift, select both, go to path, this time exclusion. What it then leave me with is cut out, this time, where the two shapes overlap. So that's another tool you can use. I'm just going to quickly go Control Z and duplicate that square like I've done before, bring that there. Select the two again and just take it back to the way it was. And now I'm going to right click, duplicate, and use the other path tool. Now what I'd like you to do is really get used to these types of tools, because they're really valuable in creating decent graphics, because especially when you're using circles or you want to create a kind of like cut out of another shape, these types of tools really help. So I'm going to go shift, and this time I'm going to use the division tool. And what that's actually going to do is allow me, if I click off now, to where the shape overlaps, is it kind of creates like a separate element that I can pull out, and I can sort of do that over and over again if I wish to. Path and division, and effectively deconstruct the square. Once I've clicked on that, I can now move that around and change the colours of it. So those are the kind of basic path tools that you can use, and if you want to go through that again just to see what cut path does, to just explore what the path tools are, I'm just going to select them all and delete them, because the next part of the tutorial is I'm going to show you how to use the Bezier tool to create a kind of star shape. It's a basic introduction on how we use the Bezier tool, the basic sort of features of it, but as we move through the folder or creating our design folder, I'm going to show you how to use that tool to create some more intricate shapes using really those fundamental processes I'm about to show you. The Bezier tool is just under the pencil tool here, and it's a dot to dot process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on it, and all I'm going to do using the grid system is just dot to dot and create a diamond, making sure that it's fairly equal in proportion. And what I'm now left with is a sort of diamond. Now to create these curves that I've done, I go to this tool here just under the select tool, edit pass by nodes, and I'm now going to double click where the lines intersect, or basically the midpoint between the two corners. So double click there, double click there, and double click there, and that will create an extra node for me. So I'm just going to pull that in by holding down my left button and selecting it so it goes red, and dragging it. Hold down your left button and drag that in again. Hold down your left button and drag it. So I've now got this kind of star shape. Now how do I get these curves? The way I get these curves is make sure that the node is selected so it's blue, and this little tool here, which is make selected nodes symmetric, which is a really cool tool, and it really helps with your drawing in later parts of this project. I'm just going to select that, and every node I'm just going to go back and make it symmetrical. Now once I've finished with that, if I go to my select tool, it should leave me with a star which I can colour in and duplicate and use some of the other tools, other tricks, like maybe create an exclusion and see what happens. So I select that, and then on the layer below select that one, go to path and exclusion, and that'll leave me with quite an interesting little shape that maybe if I made it go black gives it quite an interesting graphic. So those are some of the basic tricks that we will use later on in the project, which I want you to get accustomed to and also use to develop your project folder template. You can, I mean, there are a number of different things that you can use, and we can, when we have our support sessions through Skype, please, if you've got questions on how to create slightly more dynamic graphics using some of these tools, then please just ask me and I can then show you using the share screen facility in Skype.